Okay, what words did you underline? When did you have any words you underlined?
Yes.
Is what? Dictatorship. Where is that word?
First line. At the end of the first line.
Oh, I see, yeah. Why did you underline that word? I'm not saying it's a bad word to underline, I just was wondering what you were thinking.
I thought of high hand.
Handedness.
High-handedness, yeah. Okay, so they're under dictatorship of pharaohs, and then Moses and Joshua had pretty good authority in their lives. Now all of a sudden, it's like a 19-year-old going to university. There's nobody in charge except for them. So what else did you underline? Yes.
No leader for the first time.
You know what?
No leader for the first time.
Yeah, no leader really for the first time. Their whole history had been oppression by Pharaoh, then Moses, not oppression, but strong leadership by Moses, and effective leadership by Joshua. I mean, after all, Achan was disciplined for his behavior pretty seriously. And then all of a sudden, Joshua dies, they get up the next day and they say, who's the boss? I don't know. Let's just do our farming, let's just do our stuff. And it went from bad to worse. Anything else on the line? Kennedy, you have something? Your what?
Not just about
Okay, phrase is okay.
another. There arose another generation
Yes. Yes.
who did not know the Lord.
Right. And we have a recurring theme. Joshua left no successor, and one generation left no truth of the hope of what God had done to the subsequent generation. Every generation is responsible for the next generation to be a successor. And they didn't. And so these people were just regular people, and the only thing they saw was the other candidates around them. And pretty soon they became degenerate people. And if it wasn't for God's covenant with Abraham, he would have left us. But because of his covenant, he stayed true to him. Up until today. But, so there we see the cycle below. Idolatry and sin starts at the top and it goes to the right. Oppression from enemies. You might want to draw arrows there. And then after the oppression from enemies, they cry out to the Lord. And then after they cry out to the Lord, God raises a deliverer because he won't be faithless to Abraham and his covenant. And then they're delivered from their enemies. And after they're delivered, the next step is idolatry and sin. And it repeats over and over again. That's the cycle of judges. So the summary statement is there at the bottom. Then the Lord raised up judges who delivered them from the hands of those who plundered them. Yet they did not listen to their judges, for they played the harlot after other gods and bowed themselves down to them. They turned aside quickly from the way in which their fathers had walked in obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do as their fathers. When the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge and delivered them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who oppressed and afflicted them. But it came about when the judge died, and that they would turn back and act more corruptly than their fathers, in following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not abandon their practices or their stubborn ways. It leaves out the fact that they did cry out to the Lord from time to time, but they cried out to the Lord when people's feet were on their neck. And that's why they cried out. So last page, what I want you to do is look over that chart and notice the years that they were judges, the tribe they were from, and look at some of the comments. And I just want you to make 2 or 3 observations that you think are significant. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to look at that chart, and then we'll wrap up for the day. But these are the judges, all the judges on the left, and how many years they served, and just some stuff that happened to them. So look them over, and I want you to identify a couple of things that stand out to you. Okay, what are some things that you've noticed there? Some interesting stuff right here. Kennedy.
The politician is not included in the list.
Who's not?
The guy who came to power after Gideon.
What was his name?
The guy who killed his brothers. I don't see his name.
Was he a judge?
The politician.
What's the name?
While he's looking that up, what other observations do you have? Yes.
Yeah, I realized that this time was a very long time. They suffered more than 2 centuries.
Yes.
When we trying to look at these years, it's more than
Yeah, you're right.
2 centuries.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very
That's a good observation. It's a long time that they suffered. They deserved it. They deserved it. They were really wicked during this time. And there's some closing stories that illustrate just how wicked they were. But God's promise to them was fulfilled. If you stick with my covenant, I will bless you. If you don't stick with my covenant, I will anti-bless you. To keep from using the word curse. But, I will remove blessing from you. I will counter blessing.
I will unbless.
Yes, Anne.
2 things. One, this took 80 years before.
Yeah. You know what else? Everyone else know what Ehud did? Ehud's the guy that stuck the sword in the guy's fat belly. And the fat went over top of the hilt of the sword and left him in the bathroom and then left. But 80 years. So I wonder how old he was when he started. He must have been like 18, 20, and then he lived a long time. So that's an interesting thing. So what else?
Another thing,
Yes.
the fact that this was a very patriarchal community, yet you see Deborah as a judge, who is a woman.
Yes. Yeah, and when you look at the story of Deborah, you see only good things said about her. And the Lord used her. So it's an interesting dynamic in that whole patriarchal society thing. It's also a very violent story. I mean, another woman in that story ends up killing the bad guy by putting a tent peg through his head. And so it's interesting dynamic of a tale of 2 women that are doing things that are normally only done by men. Yes.
Notice some leaders here who are closely, they are like kind of leaders.
Tell me why.
The only thing said about them is their sons and donkeys and cows. That is Jair and Abel. They are just praised because of something they own, their family, or the family.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the scripture itself has 2 or 3 verses for these guys. And what it says is something, they had 40 sons and 30 grandsons and 70 donkeys. And the other one says they had 2 verses, 30 sons, 30 daughters, married all outside their clan. They had them intermarried with other tribes. So it's just an interesting thing. And then the ones we know about mostly are Gideon and Samson. Samson was not a good guy. And yet he was used by God to deliver the people of Israel. But not because he was a good guy. It's just because God chose to use him. And he was adulterous. He was, I guess adulterous is the right word. Immoral, at least he was immoral. And he was rebellious against his parents. He just was a bad guy. But for some reason, God said, maybe there are no good guys, and I want to deliver you, so I'll pick this guy, give him long hair and strength, and see what he can do. And he did deliver. But so this is a very, very messy time in Israel's history. One of the things we'll see in Kings is during Elijah's time, the priests of Baal were all Israelis. They were not Canaanites. They were Jewish. They had completely sold out to idolatry during this time. Kings came a little bit later, actually quite a bit later. But this is the same kind of thing, where they just sold out. And God stayed faithful to them, even using corrupt people because there weren't any good guys left, maybe, to save them. And it was a very terrible period. So it closes with 3 closing narratives. The tragic story of Micah. Micah was an Ephraimite, made an idol, hired a passing Levite priest as his household priest for the idol. Oh, you're a Levite. You're a priest. Come be the priest for my idol. That's how far they had fallen away from the Lord. Soon a contingent from the tribe of Dan, seeking a better place to live because the Philistines, they weren't able to eliminate the Philistines on the coast, kidnapped the priest, stole the idol, asked for a blessing as they overtook, it's a typo, it's not us, they overtook the peaceful town of Laish because they were looking for a low place to live. Really corrupt stuff going on. Then the second story is the Levitical priest, another priest, and his concubine. Oh, okay. Priests can have concubines. The Levite's concubine is brutally gang raped and murdered by men from the tribe of Benjamin. This prompts retaliation from the other tribes, which decimates Benjamin, and they have to do something really funny to replace the tribe. So this grotesque and alarming series of events concludes with the fitting words of Judges 21:25, which is repeated several times throughout the whole book. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit, or what was right in their own eyes, is literal Hebrew. Readers reeling from the immoral activities of these closing chapters of Judges can take some comfort in the fact that the Scripture clearly condemns these activities. Crimes such as befell the Levite's concubine are what happens when the law is spurned and everyone does as he sees fit. This dark period of Israel's history would soon lead to the demand for a king, an act that would help to some degree, yet would also reveal the need for a perfect king and Messiah, Jesus Christ. So we'll close with a video on Ruth, and then we'll break. But yes, you found the guy's name, or do you have something else? Oh, there's debate on whether he was really a judge or not. Most people don't think he was a judge. Some people do, but most people don't think he was a judge. He was an usurper, but he wasn't a judge. So I'm glad you found his name, because Abimelech he's on some lists with an asterisk. And at the bottom it says, not considered by many to be a judge. So I didn't agree. Okay, last thing, we'll watch a video, and then we'll break. Is there tea?
Yes.
That's why our gentleman is still here? Okay. And we won't have time to comment on it, so anything you want to write in notes about Ruth, it's a pretty good description of Ruth, but I want to respect your time as much as possible. Yes.
This is the joke.
Okay, do it.
I just saw that the 10th judge was Ellen.
Yes.
Now we're going to watch a video game.
Say that again. Yeah, oh, that's your name. That's right. In fact, that's where I remember seeing you. It's your Ruth. That's Ruth. Okay.
That's the joke.
I know.
That's,
Rudu.
From say allegiance for 8 years.
The Book of Ruth is a brilliant work of theological art, and it invites us to reflect on the question of how God is involved in the day-to-day joys and hardships of our lives. There are three main characters in the book: Naomi, the widow, Ruth, the Moabite, and Boaz, the Israelite farmer. And their story is told in 4 chapters that are beautifully designed. Let's just dive in and see how this all unfolds. Chapter 1 opens with this line: "In the days when the judges ruled." And it reminds us of the very dark and difficult days from the book of Judges. And here we meet an Israelite family in Bethlehem, struggling to survive through a famine. And so, in search of food, they moved on to the land of Moab, Israel's ancient enemy. And there, the father of the family dies, and the sons marry 2 Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. And then the sons, they die too. And so they leave only Naomi and these new daughters-in-law. And so Naomi, she has no reason to stay anymore. And so she tells her new daughters-in-law that she's moving back home. And Naomi, she knows that the life of an unmarried foreign widow in Israel is going to be very hard. And so she compels the women to stay at home. Orpah agrees, but Ruth does not. She shows